arrogant, throwing fits, ripping shit, tearing it, imperative. Then I'm killing this mic no matter where I live. These derelict rappers acting the fool, this embarrassing is flagrant. That's the nature of this entertainment, and we can't even change it. Guilty before arraignment, now the system tainted. But when we speak, they all laugh at us. And y'all wonder why I'm lacking trust. Try to fight a giant with attorneys that can back them up. That's church versus science, both sides start acting up. I'm late on my assignment, hopping up a mile high, climbing, obviously never silent. New alignment, I'm defined, cannot describe it. Used to describe it as a young graffiti artist. Before the beard, I always got carded. Hit every bar, even though my bar's been the hardest. The scars on my face said I ain't always been the smartest, but I'll show you where my heart is. I said I'll show you where my heart is. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my...
The type of guy that would ride with the breeze. I'm higher than most people, I'm cold and icicle freeze. I'm liking to Mike Tyson, I'm a bison, a beast. I'm high like Jamaica, like right by the beach. My pops is from a spot where they're fighting for peace. 8 years old, out there watching people fight in the streets. All these sirens only make the violence increase. Yeah, we're still not loving police. It's that bright young American, nice, dumb, arrogant. Tight on a mic, but he might need a therapist. Heart full of kerosene, head full of fairy tales. Said that you're my homie, you don't know me, but I know you very well. Roll back on some West Coast shit. This whole track is wetter than your dress code kiss. About to hit the track, running on some retrofit. It gets so lit, I guess so, bitch, now let's go.
I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will...
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. Hang with the fellas, little sports nonsense and whiskey. Welcome. As you see a water bottle in my hand and not a glass of the delicious brown nectar, I had a rough couple days, and I'm going to do a lot of hydrating. So it's a sober cast for Caleb. I'm sure Pinky will pick up for both of us.
I've got one for you, buddy. Don't worry. I got you.
Cheers, my guy. Cheers.
I got you covered.
I appreciate that because there's no way I'm putting that down right now and hoping tomorrow's going to be okay.
I mean, you could put it down, but
yeah, I'm not. I don't want to play that game. Glenn, yes, going to be discussed for sure. So
just saw that. Not too long ago.
Already on top of it, we've got a post out there talking about him. I mean, we can just say it now. We'll start off real quick. A true legend, one of the greatest to ever play the game. And as I put out on our post to honor the now late great Willie Mays, arguably the most iconic baseball play in history, with his over-the-shoulder catch in the World Series. So it is something that he provided so much to the game, and his legacy within the game isn't just him. As you know, or if you don't know, I'll educate you a little bit. The fact that he is the godfather of the great Barry Bonds as well. So there is a true history and legacy that he will continue to leave on this game, even after his passing, through himself and others. So it is a sad day for baseball, sad day for his family, but I've always been under the impression that you don't grieve the passing of someone that was able to live a full life. You honor the memory and cherish and enjoy the moments that you got to spend with them, rather than the sadness that comes with it. Kind of weird to think about, but the sadness is a selfish act in a way, whereas the happiness and the honoring of that person is more for them.
I mean,
so I always try to err on that side, regardless of my own feelings. And I feel like it's helped me over the years deal with some major losses of my own.
I mean, let's just celebrate, right? He lived till 93. You know, I started to think about, I don't know if I want to make it past 75. So to make it to 93, that's just
Well,
I mean, it's
75 is going to be tough, Pinky, because I'm living till I'm 132. So that's a lot of years without my guy.
I mean, the wife probably wants me to live till 80 at least. So
It'd be nice to have you stick around a little bit longer. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
I mean, I started thinking about it. That's only 36 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was either done in my early 20s or I was going to 132 was something I thought about when I was a little kid. And somehow I made it past the early 20s. So I better get a really good retirement going because that's a lot of years.
that's a lot of years. Or you better hope those kids are successful.
Yeah, raise some geniuses.
I'm just gonna start the first retirement commune where everybody pulls their money together so that we can actually live and feed each other.
I mean, I'm in. The problem with that is based on what you're saying, I'm gonna have to take care of this commune on my own for 60 years. I don't see that happening.
Well, you're gonna have to learn how to self-sustain and have grandkids out there, picking crops.
Right,
you're gonna have to have that.
Pinky's grandkids as my labor. That'll work.
It'd be probably great grandkids by then. But
yeah,
we'll see.
For sure, for sure. But yes, R.I.P. Willie Mays, a true icon of the game, and he will be missed for sure.
Glenn, glad you joined for a moment. I was sad to see your guys' show wasn't on tonight. 5280 is my normal show I watch Tuesday nights at the gym, and they weren't on tonight. So hopefully everybody's okay. Hopefully everything's all right. Cheers to them. I will say I did check out a show that we're going to be on July 11th. We're going to join the Old Fashioned Football podcast, and I joined them tonight. Awesome. It's a guy and his wife, and they sit side by side in the same room, which is a little cool because that's how we used to do it, right, when we were in studio. But fun couple. They talk about whiskey. They actually reviewed a whiskey tonight. Very cool stuff.
Nice. You actually joined them, or you just listened in?
I listened in.
Okay.
So I was on the chat.
Gotcha.
I joined them in the chat. So I felt like I was part of the show.
Pinky reaching out to the masses. Always wonderful.
Oh, man. Ooh, that is still sharp. All right, man. So, Glenn got it kicked off quickly. I don't think I had any nonsense this weekend.
I got a little bit. Started watching Shogun. I knew it was going to be great because, like I've said before, I've been on the FX bandwagon for many a year now, and they have a really good track record of just turning out really great television. So not surprised that it's good. What I was surprised about, not doing any research about the show ahead of time or reading about it, was surprised to find out it is based on a book, and the accuracy in which the, call it rise and fall and rise of Japan, if you will, came to be. Did not realize that historical piece was there. I thought it was more just kind of a fiction piece kind of made up and stuff, not a fiction piece based solely in historical fact. So that made me even more interested as I started watching it. Only, I think I'm almost halfway through the season. There are parts where I feel like it's a little fast-paced, where they could have let some things breathe a little more, but also loving the pace of how they're telling the story at the same time. So I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but I am enjoying it.
That's because this was made as a one-time show. There wasn't going to be this was made as there's no season 2.
I was wondering that, and again, haven't really looked into any of it because I'm just kind of enjoying what I'm learning and seeing. But so, are we not getting a season 2, or have they announced a season 2?
So they are working on a season 2. What that comes out to be, we don't know. But they've signed the main actor back.
Is there only one book? See, this is where I really haven't done.
Right, it's just one book.
So season 1 was supposed to encompass basically the entire book.
The story, yep.
And now they're going to go off script, which is always incredibly dangerous. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I mean, so far I'm liking what I'm learning and
So there's
seeing.
As you get to the end, it is wide open. Because the Shogun hasn't become Shogun.
Right. And
so
I think
there's still room.
Obviously. I think it's also really cool that if you watched, and I know a lot of people hated it because of the whitewashing that took place, but if you watch The Last Samurai from Tom Cruise, this feels like the preemptive to that movie.
Right.
Which is cool to think about in those historical terms.
I feel like they watched that movie. I think they watched that movie, took that as just something to have in their mind as they were building this world. So
I think it's cool to kind of know those historical pieces and kind of how they move forward into those scenarios, if you will. So I love history, truly love all history. And anytime I get a chance to learn more than what I already knew, I'm all for.
And again, it's at the end of the day, it's very similar to Game of Thrones, where it's multiple people fighting for control.
Sure, but I mean, let's be honest, that is history, right? Real life history is always houses upon no house trying to become a house, constantly feuding and battling with each other to gain that power. So it's cool. I love it. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I don't see that changing.
So happy Father's Day.
Thank you. You as well, sir.
To you and all the fathers out there. Hopefully everybody got to enjoy some time, relax. Hopefully the wives and kids, mainly the kids, help make it just kind of a relaxing day. That's kind of what it should be. So that was Sunday was good. Pretty much relaxed for that. Only thing I got to do this weekend is I did get to watch Clash at the Castle. I watched it on replay. I didn't watch the live, but I watched it on replay.
I'm told Pinky as soon as I got to the last match, I texted him and I said, if this ends with Drew not winning the belt, I'm out and I'm taking a break. And Pinky didn't even let me finish the match. He immediately wrote back, Drew doesn't win. I stopped right there. Right there I stopped. I'm taking a break. Guys, if you've watched us at all, you know Pinky and I love our WWE. Okay? We like it for the sheer entertainment value. But when that entertainment value becomes stale and the storylines being written could be done by a 2-year-old, I can't continue to watch. So I gotta take a little break.
I still feel like you got to give Triple H a little bit of run. Because there was a lot of storylines that were built up before he took control. And now he's got to, and sometimes you can't just completely walk away from something that's already been built up. You got to kind of finish that and then start the next thing. So,
I don't disagree with you there, but I don't
like CM Punk at all.
Well,
and
bringing him back is a joke to begin with. I don't understand that. I don't understand why you're allowing Damian. Look, they're going to make the same mistake with Judgment Day that they made with why am I drawing a blank with the family? The tribal chief and why am I drawing a blank? Bloodline. That went on way too long. Way too long. The Bloodline storyline should be dead now. The fact that they're still trying to push Sikoa and his two guys is a joke. I'm sorry, it's a joke. They should have been pushed to the side. There is nothing about Sikoa that says draw people in. Nothing.
Right.
They're now making that same mistake with Judgment Day. Judgment Day feels like a giant, forced, put together, only for storyline team that makes zero sense. And the way Damian Priest got the title, I was cool with. The way he's kept the title has been lazy. And you had an opportunity to let Drew win it back for a couple weeks or a month or whatever you want.
And then you give it back to him in SummerSlam.
Yeah, and then you put Cody Rhodes in the first match with AJ Styles, and I feel like that was a giant waste because, let's be honest, there's zero chance you're letting Cody Rhodes lose that. And then the way they ended it, while I can understand how it ended that way,
that one.
There wasn't enough beating up of AJ Styles before that point to say I quit at that moment. They're just
But but they don't want Cody Rhodes being the straight villain, really beating the crap out of him, and then doing that, right? That's not Cody's character. So
he got in his mom's face. That deserves a beatdown, and Cody didn't give it to him. I'm just saying, But
the mistake was having that match first. And then on top of that, they followed up with letting those Scottish tag team girls win the belt. That makes no sense at all.
You're going to let them win in Scotland, but not Drew McIntyre, who, if we're being honest, pretty solid guy to carry the belt for a little while. The way he's pushed his story over the last year or so. Only wanting the belt, not worrying about side stories, wants to focus on. You had an opportunity to let him do that. And you chose this weird Judgment Day scenario again. This team over individual thing that just doesn't work.
Judgment Day just at this point doesn't make any sense anymore. You've got Dom, who's like basically just his storyline is so awful at this point.
Oh, it's
nobody cares.
Yeah.
And then Rhea Ripley being out for a while because again, in my opinion, she wanted a break, and they gave her an injury to give her a break. Wouldn't be shocked if she's back at SummerSlam.
And then this whole I don't know when it really changed, but at some point Damian became the leader of Judgment Day when that is not how it started. He was not the orchestrator of such. That would be I'm drawing a lot of blanks tonight. I'm struggling tonight, guys. Who's the other main guy in Judgment Day?
Finn Balor.
Thank you. Finn was the orchestrator. He is the one that turned Priest and the like against Edge.
Right.
And then created everything, basically. And then at some point, Damian Priest became said leader. And Balor is just kind of another crony following along.
Right.
Just the whole Judgment Day thing could have been done again 1,000 times better, and it's not. So I struggle with this give AAA a chance because while I agree you kind of need to carry some of these storylines to the end, regardless of if you started them or not, he could still make them better than what they were, and he's chosen not to, is what it feels like.
Yeah, with the new storyline that they're going to build onto, I think they need to get rid of Judgment Day. Because Judgment Day being this dark goth group, and now you've got a complete insane group that you're going to have. I just don't see how Judgment Day continues to make sense.
Yeah,
you can't have two things that are kind of like each other.
And explain for the people what you're talking about, because when I said I was out and I'm taking a break, I wasn't kidding, Pinky. I didn't even watch Raw last night. Didn't even turn it on last night.
This is last year, there were plans to bring a new group out called Wyatt's Sick Six, or six. I think it's 6-6 is how they're saying it, and they're all in masks. And I guess these masks are all masks that he previously had worn, and they were to be in tribute to him. And he was actually supposed to be part of the group, and then he passed away.
Unfortunate passing, right?
Which from a heart attack. So,
and by all accounts, look, side note, sorry, Pinky, what you see on screen is not what these individuals are off. And I think people need to kind of keep that in mind when they're watching this, because by all accounts, Braylon Wyatt was loved within that WWE locker room and universe.
Yeah, very much so.
So, while you might see him as a heel and a bad guy and stuff, keep in mind these are written roles that these people go into and play off of. And the way he handled that was masterful, in my opinion.
So they're bringing this group out. There's 6 of them. There was 5 last night. The rumor is the 6th will be Alexa Bliss. She should be almost. She had a baby in November, so she should almost be back and ready. So I
actually loved Alexa Bliss when she turned that kind of psychotic, unhinged female version of Braylon Wyatt. Loved that. And it would be really cool to see her revive that character when she comes back.
So this is kind of like a tribute to Wyatt, as well as now a new faction as well that you have to deal with. But I think these will definitely be on the darker side, which Judgment Day never went really. They're one of their things is a skeleton with a sword, and it's supposed to be dark, but they're not really dark. You got Rhea Ripley that's dressed in black all the time, but nobody else is really portraying that character.
Yeah. Judgment Day to me is always reminded me, and maybe it's just because I've never been a big fan of any one of those individuals. I've never disliked them, but never quite been a big fan of any of them. Judgment Day has always reminded me of the South Park episode where they talk about goth and emo. You ever seen that one?
Yeah.
Where they play off the two and how one says they're this and one says they're that, and everybody else just says they're the same. And they're kind of a laughable joke. Like, that's what Judgment Day has always felt to me. It never had a real hold of anything that was of consequence.
And usually after 2 to 3 years, it's really time to move on. I mean, that's just how those factions work. They're, you've got that reign, and you just don't want it to go too long. Like Bloodlines. Bloodlines has gone too long that now it's just stale, and you're just like, can we just let it go now?
Can you name, and this is just my opinion, but let's see if our opinions match. It would be rare, but let's see. Can you name the greatest heel group of all time? And in my opinion, nothing's come ever close to it since.
I mean, the Four Horsemen were pretty close
Solid,
to that.
But not there. Close, but not there. I would put them 2.
And then it'd be NWO, the Hulk Hogan era.
When Hulk came out the very first time as NWO and announced that was and still is the ultimate level of heel group. Ultimate level. And they weren't dark. They weren't scary in the sense that they come out with like bad music and the lights off. No, they just came out with the lights on and some music and said, we're going to mess people up. And they went about it. And they went about it hard. So that to me is always that gold standard if you're going to be a heel group. And if you can't get to that level, you've lost all of it. And I think where the Bloodline failed in that sense is while NWO was a group, they still handled business individually. And for whatever reason, the WWE writers decided that Roman Reigns was never going to handle business on his own. He was always going to need interference to be that top dog. And that's why I don't care what anybody says. He will always be, in my mind, one of the weakest champions that the WWE has ever seen. Because by all accounts, he should have lost his title at least 3 times had others not intervened when they weren't supposed to. Sorry.
But they were supposed to, because that was the story. But,
well, you know what I mean, though. Like, you just,
yeah.
If you're going to write the script so that your champion always needs an intervention to be the champion, he's not a great champion. That's just the fact of the matter. So, yeah, disappointing in that outcome continuously.
Probably coming in maybe a year into Reign as champ. I never watched any of his matches and went, wow, that's an all-time match.
Agreed.
That's not a Rock and Cena, Stone Cold. I love Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was like my dude back in the day. He always put on great matches, like
nothing
matter
like
what.
some sweet chin music, baby.
Yeah, he always put on good matches, and I like a lot of those guys' matches are so iconic. Like you can go back and watch them today, and you're still like, wow. I don't see any of Roman Reigns' matches as
well. And go back just before he became champ, they had opportunities with him and Lesnar to create some all-time great matches that would have gone down in history, and they blew a lot of those as well. The very last one, I believe it was the last one, or it was the second to last one. Like Lesnar gave him one F5, and then the match was over.
Right.
When you could have had multiple situations building up to.
Is that the one where he drove the monster truck in, or the forklift, or
whatever?
No, the tractor.
Yeah. Tractor. Yep. And then kind of pushed it up over the ring, and the ring came down. Like there are just so many things that felt like Vince lost his touch in his later years. And I don't know if it was just going for dollars over cents or what it was, but a lot of things didn't add up for me as a fan that's been watching since I was a little kid.
Yeah, it's a bummer. So hopefully things get better. We got Money in the Bank coming here July 6th, and then SummerSlam August 3rd. So 2 more big events. SummerSlam 2026 is going to be a 2-night event.
Which is weird that it hasn't been yet, considering it is arguably just as big as WrestleMania now, if not bigger, possibly.
I know this next year's WrestleMania is going to be so awesome in Vegas, baby. Oh,
I hope, man. It needs to live up to some hype.
So, all right. Well, let's transition out of wrestling. We'll see. Again, Money in the Bank coming up in 2 weeks. So we'll see how that one is. But we've got talk about golf for a moment before we transition to the big one that we want to talk about.
So, man, what a finish to the U.S. Open this year. Pinehurst #2 hosted the U.S. Open. There are a lot of feelings about the course itself. It feels like a love-hate. There is no in-between. I personally love watching golf where the pros struggle. I have no problem watching golf and the pros are like, I would be totally ecstatic with a tournament that had the winner finish above par. I would have no issues with that because to me, it says nothing about their talent. It says everything about how difficult the golf course is. So when I see something like what happened Sunday and the scores aren't insanely low, you see some guys struggling on the final day. You see Rory miss 2 putts inside of 3 feet, which he was like, I believe it's 486 leading up to that point with putts inside of 3 feet over the last year or something like that. And then misses 2 on 16 and 18 to basically blow the tournament. Now still had an opportunity to win. And then Bryson blows a putt within 3 feet on 15, I think he did. And then to come back and hit that bunker shot that he hit from just outside of 50 yards to put it within 4 feet of the pin. If you don't play golf, you do not have an appreciation for how insanely difficult that shot was. Should not have happened. There's like a 1% chance that shot is made, in all honesty. So for him to put that shot there and then proceed to bury that 4-foot putt to win the tournament was epic. Now, I have been a huge Bryson DeChambeau fan since he was an amateur. The guy is a rocket scientist playing golf. The way he approaches the game is different and unlike anyone else to have ever played the game. There is a book, and I will look it up here while we're talking real quick, but it basically talks about a different way to think about golf. And all shafts are the same length. You just differ in the degrees of the club face. And the mechanics and things that become very, for lack of a better way of explaining it, a scientific approach to the game rather than a feel to the game is unlike anything else that's happened. And Bryson has took that to the umpth degree to where if you listen and you follow at all, the guy's taking all these crazy calculations just to putt the ball. He's not doing it based on feel like most guys are. He's talking about all sorts of different factors from the speed of the green to the length to the wind to the curvature and all these different factors he calculates in his head and then goes and makes a golf shot. I love it, and I always have. Now, there's been a lot of things written about him over the last couple of years. He tried to embrace the heel role within golf for a little while because he was different from everybody else. It wasn't him. It didn't feel natural. He since went to live. He has kind of stayed out of the spotlight to an extent to now win his second U.S. Open and his second major within golf. And I feel like he's truly himself and happy within his own skin. And he's playing really, really well. And I know there's a lot of people out there who feel like him going around and signing autographs until, 10:30 at night and embracing the fans and letting them all touch the trophy and doing all these things is a publicity stunt. And in my personal opinion, you cannot do all of those things if it's not natural. It will come off as insanely disingenuous, and it will come off as only doing for the cameras. And I do not believe that's him. I believe what you're seeing is a true person. I believe he's finally accepted that people are going to love or hate him, and he's going to go out there and be himself.
That's hard for some athletes to deal with.
I mean, let's be honest. If we're thrown into that spotlight like that, I can't say I would handle it great from the very beginning. I feel like you kind of got to find your way, especially when you're, what is he, 20, 27, 28 years old? Like, he's still, in a lot of sense, trying to figure out who he was. What kind of person he is, who he feels he's going to be, what kind of morals and standards and all of those things he's going to hold on to for the rest of his life. And that's normal of any of us.
Does him and Brooks Koepka still have beef?
Nah, Brooks came out and congratulated him right after the win. Tweeted, "Congratulations, welcome to the two-time U.S. Open party." So I don't believe there's any animosity there any longer. I truly believe that what Bryson did was he was against the grain so much that a lot of golf, like any other sport or job or profession, if you push against the grain, the natural reaction for most people, for whatever reason, is going to be to try to discredit you or try to downplay or talk down on what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And that happened to him. And then I feel like that was at the same height of Brooks winning all of his major championships. And they clashed for whatever reason over personality and things of that nature. I think Brooks is just kind of a good old boy, to be honest with you. That's just kind of the impression I get about him. And he's always going to be who he is. And Bryson was trying to figure out who he was, and that's why they clashed. And I believe now that Bryson knows who he is and he's comfortable with who he is, Brooks sees that, and they're all good. And that's what I believe it is. I could be wrong, but from an outside perspective, that's what I see and feel.
So, anything else on golf before we move? I just want to make sure.
I'm looking up that book real quick, just so I make sure I can mention it so people hear it.
And I love that a lot of people were, again, Rory McIlroy pretty much gave this away. He had a shot of it down the stretch, and he failed.
The book is called, yes. I was going to talk about Rory real quick before we sign off here because I've got some issues with that. But the book that DeChambeau found when he was an amateur and young and took all of it to heart and immediately built his game around it is called The Golfing Machine. I don't want to say anything because I haven't read it, so I can't completely talk on it. But I will say the way the book goes about talking about golf is unlike anything else out there. Bryson took it, loved what it offered him based on the way he thinks about life and things in general, felt it fit him, and ran with every concept within this book. And then, like I said, expanded upon it tenfold and has made it his own thing. So The Golfing Machine is called the book. If you have any interest, check it out. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Highly recommend, though, if you want to know even more about the way Bryson DeChambeau goes about the game of golf. Now, as far as Rory goes, incredibly disappointed in him. And I think he had an opportunity to honestly make up for all the nonsense he was spewing at Liv and those golfers and the such. We know by now basically he was being used as a puppet, but you don't say all the things he said unless those are your own true feelings as well in the situation. He has backtracked from a lot of those. I don't feel like he's backtracked in a way that truly forgives what he said. But his actions after losing, you can't do it. You can't do it. I don't care how terrible you're feeling in that moment of losing. I don't care if you feel like you truly gave it away and it was yours to win and you blew it. You lose like that, you have to get up on that podium and answer questions. I don't care if it's for 30 seconds. Your butt needs to be standing behind that microphone and at least answering a question. I will always go back to Greg Norman blowing the Masters. And he stood under that magnolia tree and he sat there and he answered every question that was asked of him. And in my opinion, Greg Norman losing that Masters was far more of a blown loss than Rory McIlroy blowing this U.S. Open, if you will. So any good faith he had built up since those live comments and him backtracking was all thrown away in that one move. Now, I still think he is a great ambassador of the game. Rory has always been very thoughtful behind the mic when answering questions and discussing golf with the media for the public. But you can't do that. You just cannot lose in that fashion and then say, I'm not answering any questions. I'm leaving the golf course before anybody can find out. And then I'm going to throw out a tweet that says, basically, I'm going to take some time off and then come back stronger. It's a bad look. There's no other way around it. And it was a bummer to see him make that choice. And I feel like, honestly, and this could be not true at all, but again, impressions and actions say a lot. I do feel like him losing to DeChambeau, being a live golfer, is part of the reason why he did not stick around to answer those questions. Had it been another PGA player, I think he would have stuck around. That's just the feeling I get. And whether true or not, when you leave those interpretations for people to pull, that's on you, not anybody for throwing out the interpretation. He could have silenced everybody with a couple questions at the end. And now he left open a lot of what ifs.
Can't do it, man. Can't do it.
Can't do it. Could you imagine the NBA or the NFL or the NHL allowing a player to not step to the mic after a championship game, after a loss, and say, no, it's cool. We know we have our media issues that you are required to partake in, but you want to just skip out and leave, it's all good.
We've seen our fair share of guys come to the mic and not stay long.
Right, but they still went to the mic, didn't they? Requirement, if you will. They didn't want to take that fine. Now, I don't know the rules with PGA. Are they required? Is there a fine enforced? I don't know that, so I can't speak on that, but still, can't do it.
Yeah.
Even Scott Van Pelt, who, look, is, I think, personally, one of the preemptive voices in golf right now because of his platform and the fact that he does host the Masters with ESPN and things of that nature. Even Scott Van Pelt, who is a big Rory guy and has been for years, came out and basically said, can't do it. Can't do it, Rory. You can't do that. So when you have those voices saying the same thing, I think it needs to be heard, and Rory needs to find a way to make up for it. And I don't know what that is. Because let's be honest, if he somehow goes out and wins the Open in a couple weeks from now, and then steps to the mic after a victory to answer questions, that's going to be a bad look as well. Like, oh, now you'll talk to us? What's going on? Because that's, in my mind, if I'm a reporter and Rory wins the Open in a couple weeks, my first question is not about, oh, the relief you feel for finally winning that major after 10 years apart. It's going to be, Rory, what makes you feel like it's okay to step to the mic after this victory and not when you lost a couple weeks back? That would be my first question. And I would make him answer it. And if he passes that question and I'm the next reporter up, I'd reiterate it until he answers it. That would be how that should be played.
Yeah, you wouldn't be in that. You wouldn't get those credentials no more. You'd be out.
If everybody else did it, I mean, look.
Nobody else is going to do that, though.
but they should, like, if you're really media, those are the questions that should be answered. I'm just saying. The media has become a little bit weak over the years and are not pressing for the questions and answers that should be pressed for. And too many people want to be in favor rather than doing their job.
But again, they got to play the game, right? It's a game. And if they want to get interviews in the future and private sit downs and stuff like that, they gotta play nice.
Yeah, but let's be honest. If all media does the same thing and ask the honest, true questions, and the players don't want to answer them or give the interviews, what happens to said player? Are you as popular anymore? Are you in the limelight? No. You will lose that spotlight. You will lose those sponsorships. You will lose those partnerships. That's the honest facts. It goes both ways.
If you keep winning, you'll still be okay.
Well, you'll make that money for sure. But yeah, good U.S. Open. I like the fact that the course was insanely difficult. To me, that is something that I like to see. I like to see the pros struggle, because as someone who's played the game since I was a little kid, I know how incredibly difficult it is, and that how that one good shot will make up for an insanely terrible round, to the point where you'll continuously punish yourself and come back for more. That glutton for punishment, if you will. So I would like to see a little bit more of that in certain situations. And the U.S. Open is kind of known for making courses difficult on the players. So we'll see what happens in the future. But the Open comes up next. In my opinion, it's the Masters, the Open, the U.S. Open, the PGA Championship. That's the order for me. So I love the golf that you get from the Open. And for those that aren't familiar with the Open, it used to be called the British Open to separate it from the U.S. Open, but it is the true Open, the original. And the links golf that they play, if you've never played a links golf course, highly recommend you search one out, because it does play unlike any other course you will play. So coming up, we'll talk about it later, but that's the golf for this time being, good sir.
All right. Well, let's do some quick hitters real quick. Shockingly enough, the Stanley Cup Finals might not be over tonight.
Dude, Edmonton doing some work right now. Love seeing this. They took to heart being down, and they came out blasting Game 4 and smoked Florida. Now, Game 5, they're putting the heat on them again. Now, 4-2 going into the third. That's what I keep looking over at, guys.
Yeah.
I've got the game going right here. So if I'm looking away, it's because I keep.
I'm waiting on Twitter for Oilers chick to show her live reaction, but I think she's holding back until Game 6.
You don't want to jinx anything at this point. There is not a more superstitious fandom or athlete than hockey players, in my opinion. They are the most superstitious of them all. So if you're a true hockey fan, you're not doing anything wild or crazy when it comes to that. Now, I will say I am not superstitious in the least, not even a little bit. I had an opportunity when I was 18 or 19 to be present with the Stanley Cup. And I did something I was told I'm not allowed to do, but I snuck a touch. Snuck a touch on the Stanley Cup. And I know a lot of hockey fans that say, if you do that, your team will never win again. Well, that turned out to not be true, because the Avs won a couple years back. So they did win again within my lifetime, even though I touched the cup. So I don't believe in the superstition. I was that close to it.
There was a 20-year gap, though. So that was your fault. There was a 20-year gap.
Whatever. We know how I feel about gaps. Go all in and win it again. I'm happy.
They had to wait for 2 rings to come off, and then it was okay.
They did, but I don't care. One of my brother's best friend's father, if I remember this correctly, was the head athletic trainer for the Tampa Bay Lightning when they won back in 2003, I think it was. And when he got his day with the cup, they held a big open party basically in our small little hometown of Palmer Lake, Colorado. And everybody come out and hang out, take pictures with it. And my brother being such good friends with this other young man and his family, went to their house when they threw the private party. And my brother's got some epic pictures with the cup. So if you want to blame the Avs not winning the title for 20 years on the Surcels, that's fine. But still won within our lifetime again.
Par for the course. Blame the Surcels. Par for the course. So hopefully that'll go game 6. Then that becomes a little more interesting. I should say I think I peeked in on one of the games and Florida was just dominating, and I was like, yeah, this isn't fun to watch, and really haven't come back to it. So game 6 would be Friday, and that would maybe pique my interest.
I'm going to tell you right now, if this continues, if this goes to 7, even if the Oilers don't win, if Connor McDavid isn't given the Finals MVP, I think you had a huge missed opportunity there.
I'm not going to give him Finals MVP. He didn't even score a goal until game 4.
Yeah, but again,
none of the superstars for the Oilers had scored a goal until game 4, and that's
not
when they
just
went
a goal. If I remember correct, I don't think Connor McDavid had a point in the first.
He did not. So I can't say like you. If he'd have to have these next 3 games. He's got a point tonight, so he would need like the next 2 games, win the cup. Sure.
No, if he wins, it's definitely Connor McDavid. I'm saying, who's on Florida done anything?
They're going to be. They'll give it to the goalie.
Nah, if it goes to 7, I'd have a. If it goes to 7, to me that means Connor McDavid showed up and showed out. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you don't give it to a loser.
I disagree with that. I think there's been plenty of times where the best player was on the losing team, and I think to give it to somebody just because their team won, I think is a cop out.
That's just not how they do things, though. That's just not how they do things.
I don't care. I don't care how they do things, Pinky. I don't think that the winner should get it just because they won if they weren't the best player. They should go to the best player. I mean, the regular season MVP hasn't always gone to the guy who shows out in the playoffs, right? So
no, because the votes are in before then.
Right. I get that. I'm just saying. I mean, there's been too many. Andre Iguodala getting that Finals MVP over Steph Curry was a joke. And people are like, well, he beat up LeBron. LeBron still averaged like 38, 6, and 6 in that series.
But he beat him up.
So, like, I don't want to hear how Andre Iguodala beat up LeBron James and deserved. No, he was a role player who had a nice series without Steph Curry there, who averaged like 26, 6, and 6 in that series. Andre Iguodala doesn't even score. So, I don't. The media is terrible sometimes when it comes to voting for these trophies.
Are they, Caleb? Are they terrible?
Just awful, man.
They're terrible.
Just awful.
Just like Charles Barkley. They're terrible.
Terrible. Just terrible. And, hey, speaking of Charles, we are going to lose an icon of sports media after next year, if what he said is true. He said next year will be his last year in broadcasting, and then he's going to head off into the sunset. So if that is true, we will lose a true broadcasting icon for sports.
I can't see him being done. I can't.
He said it.
I just can't. I know he said it, but I think that comes on the heels of losing TNT and all that.
Well, he's been very vocal that he'll never work for ESPN because they work you like a dog, and he said he will never do that. And he's 100% correct.
Right, they underpay you and then they work you as well. So, not that I wouldn't mind that ESPN. If
I'm
ESPN's
a big ESPN
listening,
guy, and I believe that. So, whatever.
I mean, if ESPN wanted to pay me a lot, I might be willing to be overworked. So, a lot for me, anyways.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, ESPN, I'm good with like way below what your average is. I guarantee that. Like way below.
I would be more than happy to go and let Stephen A. tell me how dumb I am on a regular basis. It wouldn't even cost you that much.
Pink and I can easily fill in as a Pat McAfee light, guys. Like, no issues there. Bring us on. We're good.
I've been known to curse back, though, so you never know. I get a little feisty. Although at 7 a.m. in the morning, you're drinking coffee, not alcohol. That might be different.
Yeah, maybe.
I might have a different disposition at
Maybe.
that early time. Let's see. Quick hitter. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese.
Dude.
Set a viewership record for WNBA.
I can't look. Both sides of this have extremists that are just wild, and they've created this race bait war with the media, and they play into it 1,000%, and it drives me nuts. The other thing that I will keep preaching that I just can't believe these women are ruining themselves in the sense that if you truly think Caitlin Clark isn't the reason all eyes are coming into this, you're blind, foolish, and ignorant.
You're jealous.
Well, that is the ultimate, right? But Angel Reese, get it through your thick skull that you are a great player, but nobody, as far as casuals, was tuning into that championship game 2 years ago if Caitlin Clark had lost against South Carolina. Those ratings would have been way down if it was LSU South Carolina instead of LSU Iowa.
Right.
If we're going to take it a step further, Angel Reese, nobody's watching the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever casuals unless Caitlin Clark is playing in that game. They are not tuning in to watch you. That does not take away your talent. That does not take away that you can be a really good basketball player. But if you're going to keep trying to push against the brick wall, you are going to lose. There was a stat that just came out that the WNBA is projected to lose $50 million. Do not sit here and pretend that you are all of a sudden the reason eyes are on the game and that you are now making the game something that is going to be sustainable. It's not
the NBA. Doesn't the NBA help with that? I believe
the NBA supports all of it. The NBA has literally financed the WNBA since day one, and that has not changed. Why are they now getting charter flights? It's not because of Angel Reese. We have to start being honest about the conversation. Now, one, you be honest about the fact that there are a lot of eyeballs on the league now because of Caitlin Clark. Just accept it. Because the sooner you accept that, the sooner you're going to realize you're making more money and you're getting more benefits than you ever have before. And then on top of that, accepting that also means that there are going to be more eyes on you watching how you play the game.
And if you play well, they're going to be talking about you.
And Angel Reese has been playing well. She is a double-double machine. She is an inside presence within the WNBA who is a dominant presence, who is going to be really good for a lot of years. But quit trying to knock down Caitlin Clark like she's not the reason you're a name. Nobody would give a hoo-ha about Angel Reese if there wasn't the Caitlin Clark. There just wouldn't be. And I'll go back to the whole, after they won the championship, when she did the "you can't see me" back to Caitlin Clark, I have no problem with trash talking. What I have a problem with is when you trash talk and there was nothing you did to earn it. Angel Reese didn't shut down Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese isn't the reason Caitlin Clark had a bad game. So don't do the trash talk back to Angel Reese or to Caitlin Clark from Angel Reese. It was a weak trash talk moment. Who should have been doing the trash talk was Flojo or one of the other guards who put Caitlin Clark and shut him down. That's the teammate that should have been doing it. But it didn't.
As long as you shut her down, you win because Iowa didn't really have a whole lot around her.
Exactly. But Angel Reese isn't who shut down Caitlin Clark. It was your teammates. Let your teammates have that moment. If they want to make that gesture, do it. Angel Reese didn't do anything to earn the trash talk, in my opinion. So when I see somebody trash talking somebody else and they're not the reason for that person playing poorly, it looks like a very weak move to me. And that's just coming from an athlete perspective. That's not this white versus black thing that people keep trying to make it. I'm talking strictly within the lines of the game. Don't trash talk unless you earn the opportunity to trash talk. And your team winning, to me, is not enough to then give the gesture back to somebody when they did it to a team previously and had a right to, that's just how I feel.
Everything Angel Reese is doing just screams of jealousy.
It does. It
does
does.
she
Now,
have that right to have those jealous feelings? Sure. Caitlin Clark has gotten a lot of spotlight. But again, that spotlight is bringing eyes to everyone. It's bringing money for everyone.
and
It's
look,
bringing sponsorships
yes,
for everyone.
Exactly. High tide raises all boats. Accept it. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. So let that high tide of Caitlin
Michael
Clark
Jordan took
lift
basketball
everybody.
to the next level.
And what did they do? Nobody was just trashing Jordan like this off the court. Now they went at him on the court, which
They
by all accounts
absolutely
go right
went at
ahead.
him.
Welcome to the league moments. Give it to him. But nobody off the court was showing this level of animosity towards Michael Jordan, or even LeBron James, for that matter, as a more recent example,
Right.
as what the ladies within the WNBA are showing Caitlin Clark. And for anybody out there talking about, well, you guys are casual, you weren't watching until no. You want to go back? We've got documented evidence. I was telling people to pay attention to Sabrina Ionescu when she was at Oregon coming into the league.
Unfortunately, this is true.
Look, I am not a casual. I'm not somebody who just started watching because Caitlin Clark was at Iowa doing crazy things. I have paid attention to the league since its infancy. I remember when the Houston Comets went out and won 3 in a row, okay, with Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Swoops, who, side note, Cheryl Swoops just came out and had a insanely terrible rant about Caitlin Clark. You want to look it up, go look it up. I'm not going to talk about it now because I don't want to give Cheryl Swoops this credence and credit, because what she said and the way she went about it is just terrible. But I am not a casual. I have followed the league. I do know what I'm talking about. And I am not just on the Caitlin Clark bandwagon. I think she's a phenomenal player, but I also think Angel Reese is a phenomenal player. I've been talking about some of these ladies and women for a long time. So when I'm talking about this, it comes from a basketball perspective, okay? Not the media race bait perspective. Pay attention. Now, moving forward from this craziness, which the other problem with this, Pinky, and the last thought I'll have on it is if the ladies of the WNBA and the WNBA as a whole don't get their shit together, they're going to lose this momentum when the season ends. And they will watch viewership drop off to the same numbers it was before Caitlin Clark showed up.
I mean,
and next
most of the numbers aren't great if it's not Caitlin Clark playing.
They will not be selling out NBA arenas next year.
Mm-hmm.
They will go right back to their 5,000 square foot high school stadiums style. And they're on the verge of pushing a lot of people out because of the way this is being handled. And it's sad because, like I've said before, there are a lot of great players in this league that are pushing the game for women's basketball in a much better direction. And I feel like they're on the verge of losing all that momentum.
And I don't know how they do it, but they need to get more women watching women's basketball. That's the demographic that they need to go after, and somehow they don't.
Well, here's the problem. When you hear some woman going, whoa, the WNBA players need to be paid equal to blah, 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 and this and that, and you say, well, who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite player? And they go, I don't watch it. Shut up. Don't say anything. You have no right to talk then. Literally zero right to talk.
All right. Let's see. What else do I got? Well, I guess we can move to the NBA. And surprise, surprise, the Boston Celtics have won their 18th championship. Kudos to them. I like Jaylen Brown a lot, and I'm glad that he won MVP. I think he's a hell of a player. I think Tatum, from time to time, like we talked about him, he's a superstar, but he's inconsistent. And I I dislike him always saying he's going to be the face of the NBA. I don't know why. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know.
Well, we know how I feel about Tatum and Brown. I've been very vocal over the years about that. I do not feel that it's a 1-1A situation on any given night, and they can switch back and forth. And I've said that for years. All that being said, and I said I believe Brown deserved to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He had a couple of really good games. He did play some really good defense on Luka. Jason Tatum led his team in points, rebounds, and assists in the finals. And it's only I think it's the 8th time that that's ever happened. I believe Jason Tatum deserved the finals MVP and got snubbed a little bit. Now, I don't believe Brown was unworthy. I just feel like the narrative in the media was such that they weren't going to give it to Tatum unless he had like a 50-point game every game. I believe he played a lot more team ball rather than individual hero ball. And that changed the dynamic of the Celtics team to be more like the Golden State Warriors, the Denver Nuggets of recent memory, go all the way back to the San Antonio Spurs. When you play as a team, you're really hard to beat. And I believe that's what Tatum did. He changed his game to do that. And because he did that, people took it as he didn't have a great series and downgraded him for it. And as somebody who's been really hard on him in the past, I saw something the exact opposite. And I do believe he actually deserved the MVP over Brown. And I heard Brian Windhorst this morning on Get Up and then again on First Take basically say, I would have been really happy to see 5 votes for Tatum, 5 votes for Brown, 1 vote for Drew Holiday so that they split the trophy. And I think that would have been more justifiable than just Brown winning it on his own. I don't hate that Brown won. So I know this kind of feels like I'm saying, something out of both sides of my mouth, but I do feel like Tatum got snubbed a little bit in that situation.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
It's good. Now, I through social media, I put out a list when the Eastern and Western Conference Finals started. And I said, right before those series started, it was Minnesota, Dallas, Boston, Indy. And I've had some people try to get on me for that ranking. And I've tried to make it very clear, and I said it on our live podcast and in writing, that ranking was solely based on the fact that Porzingis was out. If Porzingis played, I said I had Boston as a co-favorite with Minnesota. Minnesota fell on their face in the Western Conference Finals. Porzingis came back, and I truly believe what he did in Game 1 set the tone for the rest of the series.
Oh, man. Game 1, Game 2.
So
he was great.
Now, yes, he was injured for Game 3 and 4. Didn't really have much of an impact in Game 5. But I still believe what he did those first 2 games was so impactful that it completely changed the dynamic.
Well, and for me, he's like looking forward to next season. He's the key. If he's healthy, they're going to be damn good again. If he's banged up like he normally is, I think they're good. I just don't know if they're great. Now,
to take it a step further, there's a couple things here I want to discuss with the Celtics. I said it last week. I'm mad at Boston and Denver because Boston screwed us out of a great championship last year that should have been Boston-Denver series. Denver screwed us out of a great championship this year that should have been Boston.
Right.
And Brian Windhorst again said something that I've been saying. If Denver plays Boston, he believes that Denver may have been the winner. He believes they would have pushed Boston to the brink because they couldn't figure him out. They beat him both times they played this year. Now, they were close games both times, but Denver had a bunch of close games against the Lakers too and still swept them. So I am, as a fan of the game, not just a fan of the Denver Nuggets, as a fan of the game, I always want to see what I believe is the 2 best teams play. And the beauty of sports is that the two best teams don't always meet each other. Now, with series, the NBA, the NHL, baseball, things of that nature, when you have a series, you're more likely to have the two best teams play, but it doesn't always happen.
Right.
Football, you have more of the ebb and flow of that upset because it's a one game, anything can happen. Everybody goes home, kind of like the NCAA basketball tournament, right? Those upsets are going to be there from time to time.
It still comes down to matchup. You in the NBA, you can have a 3 seed play a 6 seed, and some people would pick the 6 seed because they're just a bad match for that team. The other team might be better overall, but they're a bad matchup. And that happens.
Minnesota was beat to belt Denver. Regardless of that being the case, though, Denver was up 20 going into the second half. They lost that series.
They were up 20 with 8 minutes to go in the third.
Okay. They lost that. They fell on their face and they blew it. There is no other way around it. Now, as we said before, props to Minnesota for sticking it out and playing all the way through. That goes a long way. But when they got to the next series against Dallas, it looked like a team who had already played their championship. It looked like a team who had given everything they had the series before and then had nothing left in the tank.
And Dallas was still playing with that chip on their shoulder. They were still playing.
Dallas. We will get to Dallas in a second because I got plenty of thoughts on that. The last thing I'll say about Boston, and I know Boston fans are going to hate me for this, and that's fine. This is, call it my opinion. I don't believe it's a hot take. I still believe overall, as of this moment, the Lakers are still a better overall organization because they have been more consistent winning their championships over the years. And this is what I mean. Boston won 11 of their championships, 11 of their 18, okay? They won in a 13-year span from 59 to 72, I believe, or 73, so 14 years, 11 and 14. And that was before really the modern era of basketball. When there weren't a lot of teams, there weren't a lot of players, there was no free agency, okay? So they are the second best organization in the history of the game. I will not take that away from them. But if you're going to, make me choose, I do feel like the Lakers are a better overall organization because they have done more in the modern era to win championships every decade continuously. Boston won in 80, I think it was 87, 84. I might have taken
They won 3 in the 80s.
Yeah, but it was early.
Right.
I've got this. They won 81, 84, 86. They did not win again until 2008.
Right.
And then they didn't win again until 2024.
What's funny, I'd have to pull the numbers, but of their 18 championships, 10 or 11 are against the Lakers.
Yeah.
So think about if it had gone their way.
Well, and that's Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, where Jerry West went 1 for 9 in his career in championships, and most of those were losses to the Boston Celtics. Jerry West is the only person in modern sports history out of all major sports to be on the losing team and win finals MVP. So again, there is precedent for it. Only one, but there is precedent for it. And it hasn't happened since for multiple reasons. But yes, again, so when you talk about that, it's not like the Lakers haven't been in the championships. They just were losing to somebody else, which happened to be the other great team, which is the Boston Celtics. So just because they have 18 now and the Lakers have 17, I don't feel like that puts them over the top because of their gaps within the modern era of basketball and what they failed to do. So they are going to have to continue this run a little bit more. They win another 2 or 3 in the next decade. I will easily jump them over the Lakers. But as of right now, because championships are basically equal and the way in which those championships have been won, I have the Lakers ahead of them a little bit.
I still think they've got an easy path to get back next season. But if Giannis is healthy and the Bucks are back normal, Embiid healthy, Embiid and the Sixers were looking damn good. It's not going to be as easy next year as it was this year. Let's say that.
They look, and people were trying to say this about the Nuggets last year, and I think it's a joke anytime somebody brings it up. You can only play who's in front of you. And if you're expected to win and you do win, you should not be knocked for that. That should not be a mark against you. The Celtics didn't choose to have the top player from every team that they played on their way to the championship in the East out. They didn't have any control over that. But they ran through the East. They shouldn't be knocked for the top players being out. What I will say, though, is I believe their run next year will be, like you said, not as difficult as it could be for two reasons. One, Philly has to do something in the offseason that I don't think they're going to be able to accomplish, which is draw another big name to them. And I don't feel like they're going to be able to shore up their bench in a way that's going to put them over the top. I think Milwaukee has missed their window. It's gone. It's over. Giannis will never win another championship in Milwaukee. As far as I'm concerned, that's where it's at. He can win another championship, but he will have to leave Milwaukee to do it. I think that Dame Lillard trade, and I said it as soon as it happened, was a major, major misstep.
You did not like that trade. And you're a big Drew Holiday fan, though.
I like Dame Lillard, too. It's not that I don't like Dame Lillard. It's that the fit was bad. And then Dame didn't want to be there in the first place. So I don't see that changing to the point where the team chemistry is such that they're going to be great next year.
I'd be shocked if they don't try to work on trading him.
They should. I don't know what they're thinking. I also don't think Giannis is, and I've said this before, and people aren't going to like it, I don't think he's good enough to do it on his own. When you cannot shoot the basketball, you severely limit the potential of your team on the offensive side of the ball. Severely limit. And he cannot be your go-to scorer in crunch time. I don't know if he's definitely developed his shot more than it was, but I don't know if he'll be able to ever develop it at this point to be an offensive threat away from the basket. So that limits his capabilities.
And let's be honest, most stars can't do it by themselves in this NBA.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You're absolutely correct. I'm not trying to say that. But when your best player is not your go-to player in crunch time, I believe that is a flaw that will hold you back from greatness. Now, they were able to overcome that and beat Phoenix after being down 2-0. There are some factors that went into that, one being Chris Middleton healthy. Chris Middleton then had an injury. He hasn't been healthy since, and he has severely dropped off, a la Klay Thompson style.
Right.
They can't trade him because anything of value they're not going to get back.
Well, nobody wants that big-ass contract either.
That's the thing. So they've put themselves in a box that's hard to get out of. Philly has much more opportunity to build than I believe Milwaukee does at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see how those two teams specifically handle the offseason. Now I hear some New York fans clamoring about how they're coming. You're out your minds. New York had a very unbelievable, very unexpected season. And a lot of that was due to the fact that there were so many injuries in the East that you had an opportunity that you took advantage of. Now, they had a lot of injuries too. They had a lot of injuries too, and we talked about that in great detail of how it was like 4 or 5 of their top 8 rotational players were out, right? So they had some issues. But outside of Jalen Brunson, what do they really have?
I mean, they've just got a team. Now, they have to do amazing things. They have to play together as a team, which they do. They play physical. They play tough. That's what I saw during these playoffs runs when I watched them. Again, Brunson, Josh Hart, and DiVincenzo play well together. They got really good quality play from Hartenstein, but Hartenstein's probably leaving and getting that bag. He's gonna get some money. OG Anunoby, he's gonna go get that money. somewhere else. And then who was that other guy? Maybe it was Anunoby that they picked up. But so I still think the window's open for them. I just don't see them. I see them being a team that, like, when they play really tough and physical, they can give finesse teams a hard time. Fully healthy, I think they could pester Boston. I don't know if they beat Boston, but could they take Boston to 7? As inconsistent as they can be sometimes? Sure.
All things said, everybody healthy next year. Would you pick New York to be in the finals of the East?
I mean, fully healthy, I still think the Sixers can get there.
Sixers or Milwaukee, I will still have.
I mean, if you tell me Joel Embiid is healthy, he has no issues, he did not spend 3-4 weeks on the shelf during the season, I don't see any reason they're not in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals.
And that's the issue for New York. They're still the 4th best team in the East if everybody's healthy.
They still need that third component to be where you're yeah, that team's unstoppable.
I think they still need the second component. And I think that's their issue.
Well,
if
they
you
don't get
consistency
from Maxey.
Jalen Brunson.
Oh, you're talking the Knicks. Sorry. I was thinking
the Knicks. Yeah, you're right with the Sixers. Absolutely. So that's the East. Now, out West, and I've said this a few times, when it comes to Luka, I love Luka. I've talked about that for years now. I've talked about how I have no idea what the hell Atlanta was thinking trading Trae Young for Luka Doncic. We've gone into great depth on those issues. But if Luka does not mature and evolve his game to be more like, for lack of a better way of saying it, Nikola Jokic, where he's less ball dominant, and he elevates the play of his teammates by giving them easy looks and easy opportunities, I think Dallas will always be held back.
You can't sit there with the ball for 20 seconds, dribbling it around before you make your move and you go to the hoop. You just can't do it.
Can't do it.
And I understand, like, watching him there when he is, and he goes in spurts. Because he's got that, like, 5-minute stretch where it doesn't matter if you're right on him, you're not giving him any space, and he just gets that jumper. It just doesn't matter. There's, like, those 5 minutes where he's, like, everything falls. But then he keeps trying that same thing, and for, like, 4 minutes he goes ice cold. And you're like, move the ball around.
Yeah.
Move without the ball. Cut to the hoop. You know, and again, that might be they don't have enough other players that can play that way, or they don't have a coach in Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd's the coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jason Kidd, you know, trying to teach them. And again, when you've got two guys that can score like Kyrie and Luka, there is no reason you shouldn't be playing team basketball.
Well, let's take it a step further than that, Pinky. I said, and I've backtracked a little bit because I do feel like Kyrie evolved a little bit this year, and I've said as much. Now, I said he needed to win a championship to get into a conversation of greatest point guard of all time because it would have meant he was helping carry the Dallas Mavericks over what I felt was a better team. He didn't do that, so he's not in the conversation. I still think Kyrie has evolved this year, but I said when they first came together, it was going to be an issue because you cannot have two ball-dominant guards playing alongside each other and win, because what will happen is exactly what we saw in the finals. Kyrie became almost non-existent. And when you're a ball-dominant player,
he was watching.
When you're a ball-dominant player that doesn't touch the ball, the likelihood of you being effective is slim to none. And Boston flat out said, we're going to remove Kyrie from the picture. And Luka's going to have to do everything. And then on top of that, we're going to go at Luka on the other end and force him to play defense, which it's not that he can't, guys. I've said this 1,000 times. All defense is effort. That's all defense is in basketball. You either give the effort to do it or you don't. And Luka, unfortunately, chose not to give the effort. What was one of the biggest knocks on Nikola Jokic after he won his second MVP, Pinky, that everybody was up in arms about?
His defense.
He doesn't play defense. That wasn't entirely true, but there were some things that he could have done better. So what did he do in the offseason? He did two major things. He improved his conditioning to the point where he can play basically an entire game and not look gassed by the end. And he gave more effort on the defensive side of the ball. And when I say gave more effort, what he truly actually did was just moved his feet. There are two key components. Well, I'll say three key components to playing defense in basketball. Slide your feet, not cross them over. That's one. Two, you put your hands up. They're not down. And three, you just try. And when you do those three things, a lot of people will say you're pretty good defensively. It's crazy how much that narrative will change if you can do those three simple things. It truly is. And Jokic did that to the point where his defensive efficiency was one of the higher in the league overall. Because he went into the offseason saying, if my team's going to win, these are the things I have to change, and I'm willing to do it. To the point where he came back the next season and they won the championship. And then the following year, he improved on it even more to where he won his third MVP in 4 years. Luka is capable of doing all that. And they are friends. They are buddies off the court in the offseason. So I would like to think that there will be some conversations had to where Luka will take the offseason a little more seriously in the sense that his conditioning will improve and he will show more on the defensive side of the ball, and he will trust his teammates just a little bit more going into next season. If he does that, Dallas is still very dangerous because they're young, they've got some size, and they've got guys willing to play their role.
It's going to be a tough transition, though, for him to learn to share that ball and trust those guys because he's never done it.
Well,
he's been the top dog. He's been the guy that's like, I've got to score 35 for my team to win. What happens when Joker scores more than 35 most of the time?
Unfortunately, the Nuggets do not have a great record.
Right. When he scores 25 to 30, they're damn near unstoppable. He gets over 35 to 40, they lose a lot of those games.
They do. The track record says that that's not the best way for them to win. And I think Luka could learn a lot from that and just elevate and take his game to a whole nother level. So the last thing I'll say about Dallas, and this is going to sound a little crazy considering the year they had, but I would highly recommend they explore the Kyrie trade market and see what they could possibly bring in return.
His value will never be higher.
Never be higher. And while I think they could still find a way to win a championship with this duo, I'm not saying they will. I'm saying there is a possibility of it. They got to the finals this year, right? Now, they didn't play well once they got to the finals, but they still got to the finals.
I think they would need to play a different – they play the Celtics again, it's going to be over. It's going to be a wrap. They would have to play a different opponent.
They would need to change some things, and you're right, probably not play Boston, but there's possibility. There's an opportunity. It's not like we're speaking something that is out of the realm of possibilities, right? This isn't like a 1 in a million chance. They were just in the finals. So to say they could still win a championship with this core, I don't think is out of the question. I think some things would have to be tweaked and changed like we talked about. But like you said, Kyrie's never going to have more value than he has right now, in my opinion. I think it would be worth to see what you can bring in and what you could potentially add to in this scenario. And if you can bring in a couple more scorers, some 3-and-D guys, I think that fits better around Luka and what Kyrie offers.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot because they don't have a lot of draft picks going forward. They've got Kyrie's aging. Luka's right in his prime, but Oklahoma City Thunder's getting better. Denver's still around. Timberwolves are still going to be good. Pelicans are good if Zion's healthy. So Lakers are still, hovering around, right? We don't know what moves they'll make. So it's tough in the West. It's tough. Like the Kings didn't even really make the round of 8, and they were a pretty good team most of the year as well. Golden State, same thing. I think Golden State's probably done now too, but
their window has probably closed. They would have to make some serious moves in the offseason, which they've shown they're capable of. They'll blow the roof off of any.
I just don't know how much more time. Like Curry started to show those.
Is he though? I think he's
He
still in
did.
his prime.
Oh man, no, his shooting was very up and down this season.
He's
very
still averaged like 28, 6 and 5 or something like that.
I know, but there were games where he just,
he
was off.
Right. You could be right, but I err for that more on the side of he truly had to carry him all by himself this year due to injuries and Draymond being out and things of that nature in a way that he's never had to before. And they were just a bad team this year. And the fact that they were even able to be where they were was solely because of Steph Curry.
Right.
So if they're willing to bite the bullet and finally pull the plug on that dynastic team, I would trade Draymond. I would let Klay walk in free agency and bring in talent to give Curry one last run. Because I just know what
talent's out there to grab. I just don't know what talent's out there to grab.
That is the question. And to take it a step further, I already know ESPN Bet and a few other outlets have the Nuggets as second best title odds going into next year behind Boston. Vegas, I think, has them third or fourth. But Denver's a big question mark right now, too. They're very likely going to lose KCP, which is a huge part of what they've done.
There's no way they keep KCP.
There is. They just have to dip into luxury tax. Are the Cronkies really going to back up what they said and they're willing to dip into that second tier?
They're in the second tier regardless if they pay him or not.
I know. There's issues there. Calvin Booth, we all know how I feel about that dude. He is a fool in a position of power, unfortunately.
They're gonna have to find ring chasers versus keeping KCP. Like,
It'll
it's just
be
not gonna happen.
Denver's got to do a lot of things. Losing KCP won't be as huge as people think it is, because I do believe guys like Braun and Peyton Watson, if their development is such that they're moving in the right direction, like some people believe, they can fill that role a little bit. The problem is they lost Bruce Brown last year, who was a big part of their bench in the run. If you lose KCP this year, I don't quite think they have the pieces to fill those in yet, regardless of how I feel about Brown and Watson.
There's a thought that the Raptors might dump Brown, so we might be able to have an option to get him back.
There is, and that wouldn't be bad, but it doesn't make up for that. You still got to fill two holes still. You didn't fill the Brown hole last year because Booth thought he was a genius and went all rookies basically with the bench, which was not even going to go into that again. If you lose KCP too, you have to fill two holes, and you don't have the pieces to fill them right now. You have to go out and get them. I don't have faith that the Nuggets will do that. And if they don't, you have to have an MPJ playing at his best level ever, which he's been inconsistent, unfortunately, but he has shown growth, but he's been inconsistent. You have to have Jamal Murray healthy for a full season, playing at his highest level, which unfortunately, since his injury, he has not shown he can do.
Yeah, if he had been healthy all season, we probably get the 1 seed. And then we're not having this conversation. But
so there's a lot of things that have to go right for the Nuggets too. But that's true. We talked about it with Milwaukee, with Philadelphia, the LA Clippers, who I said were probably the second best team in the West if they were healthy. They're probably losing Paul George. Who knows what they're going to do with Kawhi Leonard? This NBA offseason, we'll talk about it.
Does anybody even want Kawhi Leonard?
I don't know.
As little basketball as that guy plays,
it's tough. He played the most games in the regular season he did this year, only to not be healthy to play in the playoffs, which is, I feel bad for the dude. I do, because some guys choose not to play, and it's just their nature of not being that competitive. I believe Kawhi Leonard is insanely competitive, but his body has just failed him for one reason or another. And that's been true of a lot of great athletes over the years. The biggest example of that would be Bo Jackson. Might be the most talented athlete we've ever seen, but his body failed him. And there was nothing he could do about that, period. So when that happens to an athlete, you can't blame the athlete. So I will never blame Kawhi Leonard. I will blame the organization for putting themselves in a position where they are, but I will not blame the player. Unlike Stephen A. Smith, who continuously bashes Kawhi Leonard.
I mean, I just think the Clippers owner went all in It just didn't work out.
It did. That's very true. So this NBA offseason is going to be one of the most interesting that I can remember because of all the question marks up in the air for a lot of teams, all the teams that kind of need to fill a hole in one way or another, and the fact that this NBA new luxury tax and second level and all of that is going into effect to where we're never going to see the big three again. It will never happen because it would be such poor business practice for your franchise to do that even going all in to win once, while I'm a big proponent of that, and I've been very vocal about it for many a time,
so
it's such that it would put you in a position where you may never recover.
Well, what you have to do if you do that, if you go all in, then you got to blow it up
immediately
to get back to again. And what sucks though is, and again, like this NBA draft, I think there's decent players, but there's nobody in this draft that's going to like help build your team. And that happens occasionally. It happens in the NFL. Usually in the NFL, it's like you may not have the superstars, but there's still enough depth and talent throughout the draft to still help you. But in the NBA, there's 2 rounds. There's 32 picks. There's 64 total. And there's really, again, only a handful sometimes of players that are truly impactful.
Absolutely. And to take it a step further, not just the player and how impactful they can be, but where they go, and we've talked about this many a time, can drastically alter the course of their future. Think about Steph Curry as a perfect example. The teams that passed up on him during his draft and players that went ahead of him, had he gone anywhere but Golden State, and then the way the pieces fell for Golden State the following years for Draymond and Clay and to build that, is Steph the player he is today if he had gone to, say, New York or Minnesota instead of Golden State?
Hell no.
I highly doubt it, right? So that's a big factor as well in where they go and the time they're given to develop and things of that nature.
We've talked about that in the NFL a lot. Like your coaching, the scheme you get put in, making sure you're in the right situation. Brady and Mahomes, perfect examples. If they go to different teams, different coaches, different schemes, are they the great players that we know they are today? I don't think so. No. Are they still good players? Maybe. But are they like all-time greats? I don't think they are.
What happens to Ryan Leaf if he goes somewhere where there's more structure and people around that can
build him? If he had gone and got to sit behind a guy for like 2 years, that probably would have helped him a lot.
Does that change things? Probably. There were people saying talent-wise, just pure physical talent, he was a better prospect than Peyton Manning. And that wasn't crazy to say. But it takes away all the other factors that go into being a great player.
I believe it was Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, had told Bill Polian, not Bill Polian, Irsay, to draft Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning.
Whoa. It's wild.
And again, a lot of people said Ryan Leaf was the more physically gifted quarterback, which is absolutely true.
Sure.
When you talk about height, weight, arm strength, all of that, that's absolutely true. It doesn't measure your mind though. And Peyton Manning's got a supercomputer. So it was like it was a whole different level.
Yep. Absolutely. So
that goes to the NBA as well. Like if you don't go to the right team, the right scheme, you don't have that 2 to 3 years to really round out your game, you may not reach the level that you could make.
Agreed. Now, Nuggets fans, I'll throw this out there because look, we don't hide our fandom from anybody. So I'm speaking to this as truly Nuggets fans, and it probably will not happen. And other teams will get the benefit of these 2 players and what I believe they will be able to bring to a team, which I think is going to be really solid role players that can develop into a little bit more. 2 names I have for you that I would love to see the Nuggets reach out on for the draft. And if they got either one of these guys, I would be ecstatic. And that's Shannon out of Illinois as a great scorer, and DJ Reader, who can be a solid big man, a la Zach Randolph
DJ Reader
out of North Carolina State.
Oh yeah, that dude's not getting drafted, bro.
He is. Trust me, he is.
That guy.
It might be second round, but he is getting drafted. I promise you. There's his hype train is building.
Why am I? It's not Reader. It can't be Reader,
isn't it?
It's got to be something else. It's not coming up.
Look, I'm going on like 3 days no sleep, and I have no energy in my body. So
we are experts, honey. This woman.
Burns. Wow, Reader. What an idiot. DJ Burns. My bad.
DJ Burns. I don't.
No idea where Reader came from. My bad. But DJ Burns and
DJ Reader is a great defensive tackle, if you were wondering.
Guys, I'm out of it. I apologize. DJ Burns and Shannon. I would love to see the Nuggets go after both and grab them. So those are two names I'm keeping an eye on.
I would like the Nuggets to get like a Dalton Connect.
I don't.
They won't get. He won't. He'll go higher than that. So.
He'll go in the lottery probably, but I don't see Connect being a. He's not a D guy. He's a 3 guy, and I don't see his game translating to the next level in a meaningful way. And we shall
see. We shall see.
I just don't see him developing as a meaningful piece on a championship team.
Fair. Yeah, the Nuggets are again based on where they are, luxury tax wise. They're going to have to draft well, develop well, and then pick up some good role players along the way.
Look, Booth made 2 huge mistakes. 3, really. Thinking he was building for a long-term dynasty like the Spurs with going all rookies this year, basically on the bench. It's foolish. The Spurs didn't do that. They were able to take quote-unquote cast-offs and develop them within their system. He decided Reggie Jackson was going to be the backup point guard, which regular season, anything can look good. Come playoff time, it was a huge hole. When that second unit came on and you had Jamal and Jokic on the bench, it was a glaring weakness. And the third thing he made a mistake on was thinking you didn't need a big man to spell Jokic in crunch times. When he needed a break and you had nobody else to bring off the bench.
They thought Kankar was going to be that guy, and he was hurt with the ACL all year.
That was never – I could have told you that was never going to be an option. We'll see what happens.
So good stuff. I mean, the NBA draft is coming up. When is that draft?
2 weeks.
3 weeks. Thursday, honey.
Not on a Thursday?
I mean, it might be. NBA draft. Come on, Google. It is a Wednesday.
Oh.
It is next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay.
And Thursday. 2 nights now.
A little over a week from now. And then free agency starts basically 4th of July, which is what I love about the NBA. America's birthday, and we pop off real quick. So the NBA has a quick turnaround with the offseason. We're going to know a lot of answers here really soon. So pay attention. And we'll talk about it more.
Oilers won. We have a game 6.
We got a game 6. They held on. Right. That got a little close there at the end. A lot closer than the Oilers wanted to see.
It was 4-3 with 15 minutes left. So
yep. They held on.
It was close. All right. You ready for some football talk?
Run it.
So we talked AFC or NFC East last week. Talking AFC East this week. Before we really dive into that real quick. We got to talk T-Law.
Are we going to talk T-Law and Rodgers? Are we going to talk about Rodgers at all? Or are we just going to let that go?
Oh, no, we're going to talk about Rodgers, but
Okay.
That's when we get to the Jets.
Just wondering. Okay.
Because we're talking
T-Law
AFC
separate. Rodgers is part of the Jets conference.
So I know we had talked last week, since we were talking NFC East, we were talking about Dak, we were talking about his contract situation. Man, T-Law getting $55 million.
So
I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's definitely well, I think it plays into fear. Like, it's the fear of the unknown.
Well, that and you're still paying off of possibilities.
Right. As a Denver Broncos fan at the moment, and being in QB purgatory for so long, I understand that fear. Here's a guy who can be good enough to take your team to the playoffs. Is he good enough to beat Mahomes in a battle? I don't know.
Yeah, we
maybe.
Still don't know.
If the rest of the team is really good around him, could they? Sure. Can you build a really good team around a guy who's getting paid $55 million a year? It's a little bit tougher, right? It's a little bit tougher to keep on those pieces of your team that you need to do that when you're paying a guy $55 million.
Well, let's be honest. The Jags have set themselves up to be able to ride that wave for a couple of years because of what they've done around him on the offensive side of the ball.
T-Law at the moment is not the best Jags quarterback of all time. That's still Mark Brunell.
Yeah, there's not a question about that yet.
But he has a chance to get there.
Sure.
To overtake him. But he's definitely the best quarterback they've had since Mark Brunell.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not hard to be like, well, do we really want to go back? Now, for me, I would have made him play this year out. I'd have been like, hey, man, you had a great second year. Your third year, you were hurt. I don't know. I've already guaranteed your fifth year. I got to see you this year. You ball out, I'll give you that money. He balls out, then you give him $55 million? Sure. Right?
But
that's the price of doing business.
Pinky, here's the catch-22. You wait until after this year, it's not $55 million anymore. It's
right.
60-65, which is why we have talked about how Dallas keeps shooting themselves in the foot because instead of setting the market,
we're going to get there.
They pay to the market.
But would you not like to have that extra data and
Always.
know, like, and feel confident? Because I've watched Trevor Lawrence for a couple years now, because I thought coming out of Clemson, this guy coming out of Clemson was put on the John Elway, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence.
He sure was.
The number one guys that are like, no, you cannot miss on this prospect. I haven't seen that from him. I just haven't.
Nowhere close.
First year, Urban Meyer, that was a disaster.
Throw away that whole year. Just throw it away.
We'll give you a pass. Second year, they put some pieces around you. You made the playoffs, and you beat a Charger team, the Chargers. So we'll give you that. Third year, you're 8-3, and then the wheels fall off. And to me, I know he was banged up a little bit, but I just felt like I don't know. So I don't know if he's a guy that's going to raise all tides, which is what you need when you pay him $55 million a year. He's got to make guys better than they are, and I don't know if he's the guy that can do that. Now, you brought up a great point. Now that the Jaguars have helped set the market, Dak's like, I'm better than that. I've already got like 8 years in the league. I've got consistent numbers. I'm awesome. We had the top offense multiple years. Pay me my money.
And that is a silver lining, if you will, if you're a Jags fan. Don't get too mad at the $55 million. The NFL salary cap is going to go up every year. You set the market, so in the long run, this will be a team-friendly deal.
So
that's the way it works.
In doing it early, it's smart. I'm just a guy that I would have wanted to see another year of real good play to make me confident that I'm giving this guy $55 million, and I'm going to have to let when new guys come up for their contract extensions, I have to think really hard if I'm going to give them that next contract, or if I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I've got to let you walk because I can't give you that money because it's already going over here.
Absolutely.
Those are the decisions you have to make when you're paying a guy that much.
Now, Pinky, I'm going to say something. I want to preface this with I'm not trying to bring up old wounds. I'm not trying to have an argument about his potential or what he's capable of. But I do feel like I would be doing a disservice if this wasn't brought into the conversation. And you know where I'm going. I said at the time, I do not see a gap between Fields and Lawrence. And in fact, I said I would have taken Fields over Lawrence based solely on what I saw him do in 2 playoff games against Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers. Justin Fields outplayed him twice on the biggest stage. Now, you can say they both went into insanely dysfunctional situations. Insanely dysfunctional. I still believe, though, that if you switch the two, Justin Fields would be having more success than Trevor Lawrence is right now at Jacksonville. There is nothing to prove it, and I understand that. But I also believe Justin Fields has not been given a fair shake in a situation that he's been put around a system that's going to be successful and finally see if he can play or not. Where I believe Trevor Lawrence has finally. With Doug Peterson, these last 2 years, Trevor Lawrence has been put in a position of success, and I don't believe he's in any way lived up to the hype that he had coming out of college. And now you're paying him this insane contract on what I believe is still the potential from Clemson, not any potential he's shown in the league. So it's, half dozen the other. Justin Fields, I believe, is going to have an opportunity at some point this year to play for a good team and show if he can play at a high level. If he falls on his face, I'll shut my mouth and say I was wrong. And I've had no problem doing that in the past. I'll eat some crow. But I do believe at this moment, if the two were switched, Trevor Lawrence would be a backup and Justin Fields would have been playing better.
I don't see that at all, just based on the consistency. But, you can stand on your island all you want. You think
Trevor Lawrence would have been playing any better than Justin Fields did in Chicago?
Yes.
Ooh.
Because he's consistent. Because he's consistent throwing the football.
Oh,
Justin Fields is not.
I would not. Okay. I would not say he's been consistent.
Look, there are multiple people that have broken down Justin Fields' tape on his plays and said he should have thrown the ball right here, right now to that guy, and he doesn't. Or he was going to the right guy, but he didn't have his feet set. He didn't his mechanics aren't quite where they need to be consistent, and that's been his issue. His playmaking ability is on another level. So when things would break down, which they normally would behind a crappy O-line, he'd run, and he's one of the top playmakers in the NFL. That's without a doubt. That's what made him the best running back in football that year.
You still believe if you put him with Doug Peterson, those things don't improve?
I think they're better, but I don't think they're better than T-Law, who's consistent.
I wouldn't call T-Law consistent. I think that's the difference here. I think he fell off last year from a pace that he was
hurt. He was hurt pretty good last year.
Justin Fields has been hurt too.
It's still
again. I'm not trying to have that conversation, so I apologize.
You were. You were trying.
I'm not. I do believe that.
Look, if Justin Fields can be more consistent, he can be the superstar you want him to be. That's a fact. But he has to get more consistent, and he hasn't to this point. We'll see what he does in Pittsburgh.
I think you put any quarterback in that situation, and they would have failed. I don't see any quarterback being successful in the situation Justin Fields went through.
We'll see.
And again, it all goes back
Trevor
to
Lawrence was in that situation year one with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer situation that year.
How
was
terrible was
bad.
he? I mean, how terrible was he?
He still had quite a few moments throwing the football that you went, okay, there's something there. But not enough to win games because they still got the number 1 pick the next year. But then they went to the playoffs and won a game. So again, he's more consistent throwing the football. He still has his issues. And again, I would have made Trevor Lawrence play another year. I'm not giving you $55 million right now. I'll give you Daniel Jones $40 million if you want money right now.
Jesus, even that was
that questionable decision. But if you want money today in your pocket, I will give you that contract, or I'll give you 45. No problem. I'm not giving you 55. I need 1 more year.
Yeah.
And again, that'd be on me. If I'm betting on you and you show out, then I'll give you $60 million because the market went up.
Yep.
Really, really hurts the Cowboys and their Dak negotiations. There's no way Dak's taking less than 55. If he's taking 55, I have a hard time believing they can pay Micah 35 because he's going to want more than Jefferson. And then they got to pay CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb's going to want 35. You're talking over $130 million of a $270 million salary cap.
Yeah, So
at this point, I think Micah and CeeDee Lamb are getting money, and Dak's going to walk.
Oh man,
the Cowboys are going to be forced to let Dak walk.
Oh boy, that's going to create some interesting situations.
I think Jerry Jones is ready. Like, you've had 8 years, you haven't got us over the hump. You haven't got us to an NFC Championship game. I think he's like, you've reached the point of what you could do for us. If I pay you $60 million, I can't pay everybody else.
Man, the only way I see them doing that is if they truly believe Trey Lance can play.
Trey Lance isn't that guy. But
San Francisco would have kept him if he didn't get hurt. He would have played that full season.
Oh, he would have played that full season if he didn't get hurt, without a doubt.
Yeah, a lot of interesting questions there for sure.
And then, not even including Dak, we still got Tua.
Yeah, Matt. If I'm the Dolphins, I gotta let him walk. And I don't know if I'd say I'm a Tua guy.
Well, they don't have to. They don't technically have to pay him yet.
No, but you can't. I don't. Giving Tua $60 a year, I think.
No, I mean, and this goes back to teams are going to have to tell agents, here's our number for this guy. That's it.
The Giants had an opportunity to set a precedent last year and say, you're not terrible, but you're not good enough to lead us.
But the Giants, the Giants, unfortunately.
If Daniel Jones had walked, if they had let Daniel Jones walk and test the market, I don't think there's another team out there that would have paid him 40. I don't think there's another team out there that would have paid him 35. So he would have had to come back to the Giants. The Giants would have got him at a discount, and there would have been a precedent set that said, look, we know we're not a championship team right now, so we're not going to break the bank on you. And then the rest of the NFL would have followed, because that's what the NFL does. It's a copycat league like none other. And if one team does it, another team's going to follow suit. And Tua probably would have been the next dude.
I guarantee you all 32 owners are going to have to get together, which is collusion, which they're not allowed to do, antitrust laws. They're going to have to get together and be like, hey, when you have a quarterback that's not quite that guy, you can't pay him top dollar.
I don't see, in that situation, I don't think it'd be collusion. I think it'd be smart business, and everybody would just see it as such. I can't. I've said I think Tua is better.
They technically can't do that. That goes against antitrust laws.
I don't think they have to, though. I think it would just be people using their own eyes saying, yeah, that dude, unless you have the perfect setup around him, is not all-time great. He's good, but he's not all-time great. And because of that, and with who's in the league right now, a la Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers is still there. Go through the list of quarterbacks. You are not in the top 10. You are not in the top 5. So we are not going to pay you as such just because the market dictates that you're next up for your contract.
Some team needs to basically hold to that. And nobody has at this point. They've all
and
paid.
that's my point. The Giants could have done that last year, and they chose not to for God knows what reason.
Fear. But the fear of someone being, I mean, can anybody be just as good as Daniel Jones? Pretty much. Like, he wasn't amazing. His year, he had 3,200 yards, 20 some touchdowns, and he reduced his turnovers by a wide amount.
To Daniel Jones' defense, if you will, he didn't have anything around him in a bad offensive line. So we don't truly know how good he could have been. Problem is he didn't stay on the field. So when you haven't shown me anything that I think deserves that kind of contract and you're hurt, there's no way. I'll start over.
Well, he was healthy for his first 3 years. It was this last year they got hurt.
Hasn't it been the last 2?
No, man. He went to he might have been hurt that year, but they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And that's when he got paid. But last year he only played like 4 games, 4 or 5.
I feel like he's been, let's see.
I think he may have missed a game here and there.
First year, he only played 13 games. Second year, 14. Third year, 11. So his first 3 years, he couldn't finish the season. The year they went to the playoffs, he played 16 games. So he still missed 1. But that could have been because the playoffs were already set. They rested him. And then last year, he only played 6. So he hasn't played a full season yet. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, we know they're cutting him after this season, so that's fine. All right.
Good luck incoming.
Oh, Giants fans, be ready. Be ready. All right, AFC East. We're gonna have to run through this pretty quick.
Yeah.
New England Patriots, they suck. They're gonna be the bottom of the barrel. Not sure what Gerard Mayo is gonna bring to the table. Right, first time head coach. They have a depleted roster because a lot of guys they have Bill Belichick's ideas for them. Maybe that's not the same for Gerard Mayo. So
I still think hiring him as the head coach was a mistake. And not because he may not be a head coach, but I think you had an opportunity to reset and get away from the Patriot way. And I think he's too close to that still, that there's still going to be some of that in the building. And if I was the Kraft family, I would have said, we love you. You're super talented. You're probably going to be really great, but you're going to have to do it somewhere else because we want to reset and start over. And I feel like they didn't do that, and it's going to cost them.
But I think that's scary to completely reset. I don't think they want to do that. They're already comfortable with him.
That fear of fear is what holds most organizations back.
So they the roster is thin. Drake may sit the whole season. He may get in after the bye week. They've got Jacoby Brissett back. They're more than happy to let him get sacked and hit and all that.
They probably would be smart to just let May take a red shirt.
I don't think they're going to play May unless he shows that he's ready. He might sit the whole year. I do like that they drafted Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I like those 2 guys at wide receiver.
Agreed.
The rest of their draft, I don't know a whole lot about, so I can't really comment. But I like those 2 guys.
Javon Baker, at worst, is going to be a fan favorite just for his media clips. That dude, I became an instant fan with just a couple things he said right after the draft. So I'm in on Javon Baker, and I'm never in on Patriots. So I hope he succeeds. They still have a guy who I think is super talented and has not lived up to expectations yet for a few different reasons. But Kayshon Boutte coming out of LSU was considered one of the best wide receivers until he had a down year right before he got drafted. And that was a lot of people are talking about behind the scenes that he's got some personality issues that he can't get out of his own way. But the talent is there. So they've got potential at the wide receiver position. I think Ramondre Stevenson is one of the top backs in the NFL. And he can put out some numbers too. So it's not that they're going to be deprived of talent in the sense that they don't have some potential coming up. It's just whether or not that potential is seen and they can put a cohesive game plan around it. And I don't have faith with me personally thinking there's still the Patriot way in the building that's going to happen.
Is Josh McDaniels still the OC there?
No.
Did Mayo hire a different OC? Huh. I think they're going to be in contention for the number 1 pick. I think they're at least getting top 5, without a doubt.
For sure.
Without a doubt. All right. The Miami Dolphins. They let Vic Fangio walk. A lot of defensive players are very happy about that. He's kind of an old curmudgeon. He's not for everybody. That's absolutely the case.
I also don't believe his scheme fit what they were trying to do on offense. The bend but don't break situation can work, but when their offense is as McDaniel said, 1 play, 1 score, and that's how you want to run your offense, that doesn't work with a bend but don't break defense.
Right. Well, I mean, it can't. I mean, their defense at one point was playing pretty good.
They had a lot of injuries, which hurt them.
They lost Jalen Phillips to an Achilles. They lost Bradley Chubb to an ACL. They just let Christian Wilkins walk in free agency, which, I mean, he got crazy money from the Raiders. So totally get that. They did bring in Shaq Barrett, Jordan Brooks, and Jordan Poyer on defense. And I like their draft quite a bit. They got Chop Robinson, who's one of my favorite players from the draft. They got Patrick Paul for tackle from Houston. They got Jalen Wright, another running back who can do multiple things. They got Muhammad Kamara from CSU, who's a defensive end, a big hustle guy. I don't know that he's got a lot of moves, but he's a big hustle guy. And then a sneaky good wide receiver out of Virginia, Malik Washington, could really be a sneaky third wide receiver behind Hill and Waddle. They're just in a tough spot. They paid Waddle. Tyreek wants a new deal because his deal is kind of funny money. His deal is only really worth 19, but it says 30.
Yep.
He's only really getting 19. He wants that new deal. He wants to get restructured. And then you got to pay Tua. And I don't think Miami is dumb enough to let, McDaniel walk or get out of there. But I do think he's in that, hey, you're the wonder kid for a reason. We need you to make this work somehow, some way.
Miami's kicker this year is they need to find a way, whether it's true or not, they need to find a way to dump the finesse label. And they need to find a way to win the beat 'em up, grind 'em out games that they, for whatever reason, seem unable to do when it counts.
Absolutely true. And something that's going to help, I don't think they can do it. They definitely need the 1 seed if they could get it. They need to play at home. That team,
that sideline help is amazing.
You don't want to go to Kansas City, you don't want to go to Buffalo, and you don't want to go to Cincinnati. Like, those are 3 places in January you don't want to go.
Do not.
Nobody wants to go. Nobody travels there unless they have to for family, right?
That's right.
So, but I don't think they're good enough to get the 1 seed. So if they can at least get, the 3 or 4 seeds so they can host a game, that might work. But they need that bad. Buffalo, it might be addition by subtraction, getting rid of Diggs. I think we saw it.
Cheers.
I think we saw it a lot last year where they started to, he stopped throwing to Diggs all the time, which I think, and again, I think Mahomes or Allen needs to learn from Mahomes. Mahomes became a better quarterback when he didn't have Tyreek Hill because he literally was just hitting the open guy. 7 yards, 15 yards, 7 yards, 50. Like, they just drove down the field. He wasn't hitting 40-yard bombs anymore. He was just taking the open play and moving on. And I think he would, like, Allen would go a long way if he would learn that. And he might, when he doesn't have a guy who's literally like, get me the ball, get me the ball. Man, you didn't get me the ball today. Like, I'm trying to win football games. I don't really care if you get 10 targets. I want to win football games. So that might help. You know.
I think, and I feel like the general narrative in the national media is that Buffalo's offense is going to take a step back. And I actually believe they're going to take a step forward. I think Dalton Kincaid, people are forgetting how good he is, and he's only going to get better. And a quarterback's best friend is the tight end. I mean, that's been proven over the years. I think Curtis Samuel, I do believe they're going to use him in a Debo Samuel type format, and I think he's very capable of such and being that X weapon.
I love the Curtis Samuel addition.
I think that's going to be scary good. I think they're going to run the ball a lot better this year as well. So while Josh Allen may not put up as high statistically wise numbers, I think overall that offense looks more potent and more dangerous personally. With Brady calling the plays and Allen, like Pinky just said, looking more to hit the open man rather than make that superhero play every time.
I do like that they picked up Samuel, like you said. I do like that they drafted Keon Coleman. I think Coleman's pretty awesome. And I do like that they drafted the running back Ray Davis from Kentucky. He's a home run threat. I like that a lot. Hopefully, as a Von Miller fan, Von Miller did not look healthy last year. He definitely was a step slower than normal. Reports are that he looks healthy and he looks quick again. I want that. I want Von Miller to be successful. Von Miller's my guy. I root for that guy.
I'm right there.
I love that guy.
He is the reason the Broncos have that Super Bowl for Peyton Manning, and he is also the reason Cam Newton is out of the league.
I do think the Bills are going to be a wild card team. I do not think they win their division. As you can see, I place these teams how I feel like they're going to rank. I do say McDermott needs to get this team to a Super Bowl. That needs to happen. And I do think McDermott's a good coach, but I'm starting to feel like he's on the John Fox level. He's a good coach. He's going to make you steady. He's going to get you in the playoffs, but I don't know if he's good enough to win a Super Bowl.
Look, right? I'll take it a step further. He has shown some flashes of a man who lost his job because of poor decisions out in LA with the Chargers.
Right.
And he made a couple decisions a couple years in a row against Kansas City that were questionable, that very well could have cost them games and chances at getting to the Super Bowl, to the point where, like you said, if he doesn't get them to the Super Bowl, do you look at it and say, thanks for all you've done. You've gotten us to this level, but we don't believe you can take us to that next level. And that's, again, that's that fear thing. Do you have the cojones to rip that Band-Aid off and try? And that's a really hard thing to do when you have a coach who's consistently got you in position to win.
Right. And that's going to be a tough one. Now going to the team that I think we both agree, as long as Ron is healthy, they should win this division.
I said they were winning it last year. Nothing's changed for me.
The Jets defense arguably is the best in the league. Arguably the best in the league. Like they won football games last season because they had a really damn good defense, not because of Zach Wilson.
They only won football games last year because of their defense.
So if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they win. Now, talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers real quick. Why is the media, maybe it's because it's New York, making such a big deal about him missing mandatory minicamp, when for at least the last 5 years he was in Green Bay, he didn't do anything at OTAs. I think he always went to mandatory minicamp, but he never went to OTAs. He's gone to every OTA practice. The OTA practices are almost the same as minicamp. They're almost the same thing, except for it's mandatory versus voluntary. So we didn't give him any credit for going to all the voluntary workouts, but he missed the mandatory, so now we're making it an issue.
Preach, buddy.
And I'm like, guys, it's Aaron fucking Rodgers. What does Aaron Rodgers always say? Relax. If he needs to go on an ayahuasca retreat to get his mind right, to make sure he can come ball out for you, I'm good with that. Now, the one thing I will say, if you've known about this for, I guess he planned this trip when he was rehabbing. If you've known about this for 5-6 months, couldn't you have moved your mandatory minicamp up a week?
Is that,
or
can you do that in the NFL? Is it a set schedule? You don't have a choice?
No, you can set your schedule however you want. You can set the mandatory minicamp up and have voluntary right after it if you want.
So 2 things. 1, Aaron Rodgers has never played by the media rules as a superstar. And let's be honest, arguably the most talented quarterback to ever play the game. That is not hyperbole. That is what a lot of people have said. The best arm talent to ever play the game. That's not me saying it. That's experts, quote unquote, within the game. So because he's never played by the media rules and he goes against the general rule of thumb, if you will, he's always been bashed in the media. And then you get fans who bandwagon off of that and create these narratives that are just not true. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it. I have never heard a teammate come out and blast Aaron Rodgers. I've just never heard it. I've heard a lot of teammates come to his defense. Now, there's been teammates who have talked
Greg Jennings is not a big fan of his, but
I know Greg Jennings isn't, but Greg Jennings doesn't have a lot of room to talk because Aaron Rodgers made him. And after he left Aaron Rodgers, he didn't do a whole lot at the end of his career. So for whatever reason, Greg Jennings and him don't get along, so be it. But I never heard him blast Aaron Rodgers as being a bad teammate within the locker room. You know what I mean? He's got his own personal agenda with Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason. They didn't get along, and he wants to make that public, is what I feel. I could be wrong. But you want to say Greg Jennings has? Fine. Give me a couple more that would make the media narrative true. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like the one Greg Jennings thing is equal. He's a different dude, and he lives by his own rules.
He's a weird guy, and some people don't like that.
The second thing is the fact that, as you said, he's been a model citizen since he came to the Jets, being at every non-mandatory requirement to build that rapport with his teammates, to the point where he's got teammates coming out saying, why are we making this a big deal? He was at the voluntary stuff. Who cares if he missed this mandatory? He's Aaron freaking Rodgers. Garrett Wilson has been one of the biggest proponents of that, right?
If we lose games, it's not because Aaron Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp.
So then I am now on the wagon of Robert Saleh, not a good coach. I liked him at first. I thought he had a lot of potential. I now believe he has gotten in his own way, and he could be the reason the Jets do not see their full potential. Which is weird because I also believe he's the reason the defense is looking so good. But if you're going to butt heads with your all-time great quarterback.
I mean, I don't think he's butting heads.
Isn't he, though? Because he's the one that came out and basically said, like, he could have moved this all out and said, we've known about this for months. Well, not a big deal.
Now, look, they could have fixed the issue.
Like you said, they could have moved it. Okay, fine.
I don't have a problem with him saying it's unexcused because it's for a trip that Aaron Rodgers deems important to him.
That's fine.
Any other player, he doesn't want to show special treatment to Aaron Rodgers. That's the whole thing.
The players are showing special treatment. So why is the head coach? Would you not just come out and say, we've known about it, not a big deal, move on?
Look,
Robert Saleh made it a
agree
deal.
with that. I would say what I would have done is just gone back, and I always love this quote. I remember it's America's Game, 1998, Denver Broncos, Howard Griffith. He's talking about two-a-day practices and how much they suck. And he's like, yeah, John Elway came and worked out in the morning, and he had the afternoon off. No, we didn't get mad about it. We knew why he had the afternoon off. It's John Elway. Like, he's earned that. He's got everything down. He doesn't need those extra. He doesn't need that extra wear and tear. He doesn't need that extra practice. He's good. That's where Aaron Rodgers is. He's good. He's got it. As soon as Aaron Rodgers runs out of the tunnel and he's healthy, we are not going to worry about this one bit. But because it's June and now the NBA Finals is done, Stanley Cup Finals will be done soon. We just don't have anything else to talk about. So that's why it's an issue.
I think the head coach could have come out and squashed this, and it wouldn't have been a story.
Yeah, you know what? He doesn't even have to tell the media that it's excused, non-excused, or any of that. All he's got to do is say, hey, Aaron had some prearranged plans. We wanted to make sure he could meet that. He's not here. We've already, Tyrod Taylor's getting more reps. That's a good thing, right? So
no big deal. We knew about it. Move on. Next question.
So,
I'm excited though. I'm just as excited as I was last year. I know a lot of people are sick and over it, but the potential that Jets offense has with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. They brought in Mike Williams, who if he's on the field is really good.
They drafted Malachi Corley, who's a chess piece. You can move him around. Jet sweeps, whatever.
Scary potential on that offensive side of the ball if Aaron Rodgers plays for the whole season.
And then they drafted Braylon Allen, who's another running back that they could spell, who's gigantic.
Derrick Henry incarnate, right? Like
right.
That dude's massive.
He's a little bit smaller, but very similar in size. Right. If the Jets don't win this division, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt,
they don't make the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. Well,
if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they win this division.
They do. I like Tyrod Taylor as a backup. I think he's a solid QB.
I think Tyrod Taylor could, if Aaron Rodgers gets them to, 7-4, 8-3, could Tyrod Taylor carry the load to get him in the playoffs? Yes.
Yeah. Yep. We're on the same page.
Is he going to beat the Chiefs or the Bills or the Bengals in the playoffs? I don't know about that, but would they get there? Yes. He's competent enough to get there.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I'm all in on the Jets. I like Aaron Rodgers a lot. Watching him play football is just fun. You don't have at the end of the day, if you don't agree with his political stances and just him as a person, that's fine. But you can't tell me when he's on the field playing football, it's not great to watch. Love him or hate him.
I still marvel at Packers fans who's like, get rid of him. He hasn't won anything. Like, dude, let's be honest. Your head coach took an opportunity away from him to go win a game. When Matt LaFleur, what was it, fourth and 7 on like the 12-yard line, or 4th and goal from the 12-yard line or something like that.
Again,
and you decide to kick a field goal instead of trying to win the game.
When there's 4 minutes left and you kick a field goal, you're not going to get the ball back most of the time.
And you expect your defense, who hasn't played well all season, to go out and get the ball back for it. Like, there were so many things about that decision that didn't make sense. But again, I'm always going to be super aggressive when it comes to offense rather than the quote unquote NFL standard of you do the.
If I'm down 7, I'm going to go for a 7. I'm not going for a field goal. So, that's just how it goes. So, high on the Jets. The other thing, one last thing. Well, 2 last things. Just to be funny to mention. The Kansas legislature approved the possibility of putting, basically moving the Royals and the Chiefs to Kansas versus Missouri. I love it. I love it. Kansas is better than Missouri anyway, so I like that a lot.
I hate it because I'm tired of taxpayers paying for billionaire toys. Hate it.
Well, but that's the
Absolutely hate
thing.
it.
I don't think the Chiefs ownership is really that rich, so they need all the help they can get.
Rich enough to build a multi-million-dollar luxury home.
But I think it would take
stadium.
I think it would take a lot of their assets to do that, though. They're not. They're not on that level.
You have the worst facilities in the NFL voted on by the players. Oh. Instead of putting it into your facilities, you build yourself a luxury mansion inside the stadium.
I've made tons of Arrowhead fans mad, or Chiefs fans mad, that I'm like, the atmosphere in Arrowhead, awesome. The fans in Arrowhead, awesome. That stadium is a shithole. Like, it is bad. It may not be Oakland Raiders bad and Oakland bad, but it's bad. And again, it's 60 years old. Like, you'd expect that from a stadium that old. Why people want to hold on to it, like, I don't get it. But
here's my thing. If you want taxpayers to pay for your toys, then the quote-unquote state of those taxpayers owns it until you pay it back. Like, that's how I truly feel.
I could agree with I
don't want to hear about how, these teams generate all this income and revenue and business for said city and stuff. Not on the level that's worth us having to pay and foot the bill for somebody else to own something. I don't agree with it. I never will. And I personally believe if you can't afford to build it yourself, then you shouldn't own the team. And I'm never going to move off that stance. I'm not.
Well, we are getting to the point that more private equity groups, more rich owners need to own these teams versus the status quo as it's been lately. So, because again, owners have to make decisions on, do I have the money to do that or not? And a lot of them don't. Right? So, a lot of owners, the most valuable asset is the team.
Yep.
You can't say that about asset. Yeah, it is their asset, right? And the Hunt family, that is their main asset. So
I look at, and it's not football, it's basketball, but I look at what Steve Ballmer's done with the Clippers, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he foot the whole bill for his stadium. He didn't ask for taxpayer dollars. He did it all on his own. Now, he's one of the richest owners in all of sports, so he's able to do so. But that's what I feel should be the way, period.
The way.
This is the way.
This is the way. And I don't even remember what my second point was, so we're going to wrap it up with that. That's okay. We're going to wrap it up with that. Again, we've gone more than 2 hours like normal.
That went quick. That went way quicker than it feels like. I feel like maybe I'm still so loopy. I don't even understand.
You're probably loopy. It's fine. Man, we're going to the dead season, which is always tough. I know you and Robert will be happy. I just means I need to go buy more whiskey because I won't talk a lot of soccer or Olympics.
Look, we didn't even cover basically the first round of Euros is over. A couple upsets. We didn't discuss any of that.
I mean, Robert wasn't here. You didn't want to make me talk about that because I would have just sat here and, I mean, I'm out of alcohol as it stands and I haven't drank in 20 minutes. So, you know. You didn't want to make that worse. I get it. I appreciate it.
Robert will be back next week. We'll discuss get into some Euros. Olympics are coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit when they start. So we're not going to get too much Olympic coverage beforehand.
Does Copa America and Euros work the same way as World Cup, where you have kind of like that round robin, and then you have the elimination?
Correct. You got your group play. Usually it's groups of 4. You play everybody within your group. 2 best teams from each group move forward. So yes, works the same as the World Cup. Copa we'll talk about here a little bit because that's kicking off this week. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out because you've got arguably the best team in the world right now, Argentina, defending World Cup champions, Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, those South America teams, America, what do they do? So there's still some things worth discussing within Copa America as well. So we'll discuss next week. We'll jump on that a little bit. The Olympics, Robert and I are both super excited about. So
when does that start?
The Olympics,
Yeah.
July 17th, I believe, is the first.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, it's a ways out.
Thank God.
So, and we're not going to talk about that much more until it starts, and then we'll kind of talk about what we're liking, what we're seeing, what to look for, those kinds of things. But Olympics is only 2 weeks long, roughly. So, Pink, you're only going to have to. It's going to be a minimal overall. The Olympics isn't a very long.
I can make it. I can make it.
Yeah, you can, and there'll be enough. I think that you'll tune into some of the bigger events that happen. There'll be some stories that come out as they start going on that, as a sports fan, will still be fun to watch. That will be interesting enough to talk about. So we'll see how that plays out.
All right, buddy.
Final thoughts, my good man.
We miss Robert. Hopefully he'll be good for next week. We
Take
do
care
have
of your stuff, my guy. We got you. Don't worry about it.
We will be connecting with the Old Fashioned Podcast, football podcast. Check them out. They are on YouTube and Instagram. Really cool guy. Really cool group. Shouldn't say guys because one of them is a woman. And then that's all I got. That's all I got. You got to lead us with family and friends. Like, you got to lead us out with that.
I will say I'm stoked to see what happens with the NBA offseason. I think it's going to happen quickly, and we're going to get a lot of answers right away. So that's going to go down, as Pinky informed us, next week on Wednesday will be the start of that with the draft and then leading into free agency come that 4th of July timeframe. On that note, as always, if you're not taking advantage of those opportunities you have with your family, friends, loved ones to cherish those moments and make some memories, start now and don't let those go by, because the time we have is limited and finite. So as always, figure out a way to make those happen. We can't thank anyone and everyone who supports us enough. It means the world to us. If there's anything you want to hear, talk about, listen to, hit us up. Let us know. We are all about some interaction. On that note, you will see us next week. To everyone out there, cheers. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come